in here has taken the DiSC profile? All right, so who is not? Okay, so my job in this is to get you to want to take this test after this presentation. So the people who have taken it, you got to help me out.
Because you said on your seat.
All right, so go ahead and read this. And then, who in the room does not have this problem right now? Everybody? So if I could give you a tool that would help with this problem that we all face, would you want to learn more about it? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's kind of what the DiSC profile is. But first I'm going to tell you what it's not. In the center here you'll see intelligence, right? When you meet somebody for the first time, it's kind of hard to shake their hand and figure out how intelligent they are. Would you guys agree with that? Yep. Can't really tell. It's not easy. But that's kind of our core, right? The next thing we have is attitudes and values. When you first meet somebody, you're not really going to know what their attitudes and values are, right? You can't really tell by just meeting someone. Would you guys agree with that? When you meet somebody in an interview, or you're going to interview somebody for the first time, do you guys really know how what their values are and their motivation? Not really, right? Experiences and their skills, we know about that though, don't we? From their resume, right? They're going to tell us those things, so we're going to see those things. Their worldview, all that stuff, not really. But really what I'm trying to say here is on the outside here of all of us, on the outside of this circle here is our behavior. And we can tell a person's behavior usually by first impressions when we first meet them. So, for example, if most of you came here via airport somehow, you guys ever notice how people act whenever their plane's delayed? Right? You can usually tell their behaviors. Are they calm, collective? Are they yelling at the sky waitress ladies? You know, how are they reacting? That's their behavior, right? Go to a bar, right? I don't know. That could be all the different. That could encompass all the DISCs. All right, so what I'm saying here is that the DiSC is not going to help us figure out the what of someone or the why of someone. The DiSC is really going to help us figure out the how, like how they do things. Okay? And that's important, and I'll get into why that's important at each one of their jobs. Because normally we hire people based on the what, right? Maybe the why if we've talked to them long enough. But we normally fire people based on the how, right? So if we could figure out the how before we even hire them, that gives us an edge. And that's what the DiSC is going to do. It's going to help us figure out behaviors. And we've benchmarked some positions in the IT world that say, hey, these are good people in this position, these are good people in that position. And you can talk to Shane about the DiSC too, because before Alex really got into this DiSC thing, he would hire people because he liked them. Shane would hire people because he liked them. And sometimes when they first started learning about the DiSC, they actually went and said, you know what, I like this DiSC thing, but I'm going to go ahead and take a chance because I really like this guy. And they failed every time. So they know firsthand by going against the DiSC profile has cost them a lot of money. Because we did some research, and I think it was like for a person that makes $8 an hour, it ends up costing a company $5 to $7 grand. So, okay. Who in the room took the DiSC and saw that they're a high D? Or if you have a red D on first on your deal? Raise your hand. If you don't have anything, that means either we didn't get your DiSC or you may not have taken it yet. Your DiSC is broke? I don't think I've ever heard that in one of these yet. My DiSC is broke. That's good. Peter, thank you. Thank you. All right, so D's. Who we have in here? High D's. Yep, normally we have a lot. Why do you guys think we have a lot of high D's? Yeah. Now, high D's are people that it's going to show, based on your scale, how you address problems and challenges. So not if you can address problems and challenges. We all can do it, right? It's how you're going to do it. Okay? How about I's? Any I's? All right? So your I's are going to be how you influence people. Not if you can, but how. Okay? Some people influence through people. Your high I's. Some people influence through data and facts. Okay? Your S's. This is going to show us your consistency, right? Do you like to do a whole bunch of things at once? Or do you like to just do one thing and start and finish it? Your pace. When I think of S's, when I first started doing this, I thought of the turtle or the hare and the tortoise story, and how the hare is high D, he's running, and the tortoise is just like, just get there when I can. That's how I always, when I first learned about this, how I remembered the S. And the S was the hardest for me to grasp. And when I met people and they were high S's, I'm like, I really can't figure out what they are. And it's because I'm completely opposite of them. I mean, my S is, I think, a 1 or 2 or something, really low. So it's hard for me to relate to them. All right, C's. Any C's? C's? All right, so C's are these are your procedures, your compliance. You like to follow rules. No? You don't? Who's a high C and says no? No, you're a high D. You're the opposite.
High D, I'm 70 and all.
Really?
Yeah.
That's different. Okay, so let's talk about, we'll have to talk later. Let's talk about some characteristics of the high D. Very dominant, driven. They love confrontation. So if you guys want to fight, just come talk to me. Kidding.
Excuse me. Is this the TTI thing also? Oh, it is? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, got it. Thank you.
TTI is the company that actually created all this. We just resell it from TTI. To become a reseller, you got to pay a whole bunch of money. You got to go get certified and all this good stuff. Okay, high D. You see the adjectives there for a high D. Now, once you start getting into your low D, if your D is below the midline and down, these are the adjectives that are going to kind of describe you. Very peaceful, modest, cooperative. Again, like I said, it's how we address problems and challenges. So your high Ds, they're going to confront people. So if you are a high D, you'll notice that you don't have a problem going up to somebody and telling them how you feel. You guys agree? Your high Ds? Or if you guys know somebody in your office that is like that, they're probably a high D. Your high I's. High I's are very trusting people, by the way. Very trusting. The lower you go on the I's, not that you don't ever trust anybody, it's just that you verify it first. Okay, so your high I's are your influential people. They like to talk. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they're good salespeople, because they like to influence people. Okay, sometimes high I's just like to talk to hear themselves talk, not because they're saying anything that's worth anything. Okay? They influence people, but your high I's are going to be the people that whenever it's time to kind of convince somebody of something, they're not going to send them an email. They're actually going to go meet them, or they're going to call them on the phone. Your high I's are your people that are going to go to networking events and not be afraid to go and just walk up to somebody and shake their hand, unless they're an IS. We'll get to that. Especially, so your DIs, that's why most of the time your salespeople fall into the DI range, because your high D is going to help you control the conversation and lead it to where you want. They're not going to be scared to ask for the sale, and they're going to be able to close, if you want to call it that. They're not going to be afraid to call that prospect back and say, hey, you guys made a decision yet? And your I's are the people that are just friendly. They're personable. People like to be around them. They have a high energy level. And they have a high self-esteem most of the time. Very optimistic. Okay, S's. We have some S's in here, right? Yep. Really? You're an S? Okay. These are your people. This is what at TTI, they call them the salt of the earth. You absolutely need S's in your organization. We couldn't run this without our high S's in here. Okay? Very relaxed. They don't like confrontation. They don't like change. And that's a big thing with us high DIs. Because DIs, we always like to see change, 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 change. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And when we take it to our high S's, they're like, if they're not going to say anything, because your S's have they're the poker faces, right? Like never play poker with a high S because they keep their emotions internal and you'll never win. Unless they've never played poker. All right, so yeah, your high S's, you definitely need them in your organization. The lower you go on the S, you'll see we start to get into like the higher D, active, impatient, flexible, impulsive. Okay, C's. You also need these in your organization. The C's only make up 10 to 15% of our population. So if you find one, especially really high C, get them because you need them. If you guys have problems with processes in your office, and nobody has that problem, right? No, everybody has all processes written out, how to install SBS, how to, all that stuff, right? But if you guys don't and you need somebody to write those, don't get a high DI to do it because they're going to jack it up and they're going to miss 102 steps. It's not going to be right, I promise you. Get a high C to do it because not only will they do a really good job at it, and they'll probably even be too thorough depending on how high their C is. I mean, they're not going to get it done in time, but they're going to be too thorough, but they're going to get it done right, and they're going to like to do it. Okay? So the lower you go on the C, people that don't like to follow rules. Who is a high C? Raise your hand. C's first? Like how?
That's 100 S and 94 C.
Okay. How many speeding tickets do you have?
One when I was 18.
They don't break the rules. Okay? Sometimes that doesn't work, you know. Usually it always works, but I changed it up because when I first started asking that, I just said, who's a high C? So then people, if any of them had blue on, they would raise their hand. So I'd call on them, but their second one was blue, which meant they could be midline C. And midline Cs, we get tickets. So I would ask that, and they'd be like, yeah, I got like 10 tickets like last week. And I'm like, what? How does that happen? So that's how I figured that out.
I think I was inaccurate.
Oh, yeah, so yeah, you're a C. Yeah. That's all right. Okay. The bottom line of all this is that you need each one of those dimensions in your organization to make it full, right? You need the high Ds to make decisions. You need the Is to influence people. They're your frontline people. So people who are answering your phone, if you have someone who's a CS answering your phone and they're your front line, not to say they're not friendly, they just don't like being friendly. So they have to adapt to be friendly, and they're not going to like their job for long. Okay? So if you guys are going to hire somebody to be a receptionist or even help desk people, they got to be personable. Yeah. Okay, so I want to explain the test real quick. For those of you who have not taken the test, it's a real simple test. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. It asks you 24 questions. It's the same question asked 24 different times with just using different adjectives. Okay? We have two graphs. We have our natural and adaptive. Okay? The natural is how we are most of the time. The adaptive is how we are usually in our work environment. So the adaptive is most changeable. So depending on where you're working or if you have something major happen in your life. Now when I say that, your natural can change, it's just not likely. So for example, if you're going through a divorce, your natural may change depending on who you're, if you have a new boyfriend or girlfriend or your life is changing. Any kind of big major change in your life, your natural can change, but not likely. But your adaptive will change. Okay, depending on your environment, depending on the job you're doing at work. So what we'll do is we'll find a lot of people that we DiSC profile that are not typically high Ds, but their adaptive is a high D because they're finding themselves having to manage people. Well, they're not good at it, probably, and they don't like it. Ask a high S to fire someone. They don't like it. They don't. What's that? They may. So you'll see it describes your highs and your lows, which a lot of these tests that are out there now, behavioral profile testing, they don't do. So that's why we like the TTI. And also you guys get a personalized report. The personalized report, if you guys have those, take those, give this to your team, your staff, okay? And once you give it to your staff, how I use the DiSC is, let's just say that I have people that I have to write up, so reprimand. Before I go sit down with them and reprimand them, I'm going to look on that DiSC profile because it tells me how they like to be talked to, how they like to be managed. And I'm telling you, it's helped me tremendously because I can do that. Because I'm not going to go in and talk to them how I want to talk to them, because does that really matter? Because in the end, I'm trying to get a result, right? It matters how they want to be talked to. Okay? Okay. This is the adaptive graph, the changeable graph. How this works is there's 20 possible words that are going to describe a high D. Okay, so 20 possible adjectives. And what happens is we start at the bottom, at 0. The more times you tell me you're most like a high D, because what TTI says based on their studies is that our adaptive graph is what you said you're most like. Because remember how it asked us, tell us these words, what you're most like, what you're least like? What you told them that you're most like is your adaptive graph. And the reason that they say that is because they say that it's easier for you to tell me what you're not like than to tell me what you're most like. That's what they say. Okay? I believe them. All right, same thing with the I. We all start at 0. You have 17 times to tell me that you're most like a high I adjective, and I move you up. Everybody understand that? Now, with the natural style, everybody starts at 100 at the top. The more times that you tell me that you are not an adjective that's a high D, they move you down. Okay? Same thing with I. Does everybody understand that? Okay, so this is Alex's DiSC. Surprise! Anybody surprised by that? Yeah. So this is his natural. Normally when I'm reading DiSC, I always tend to look at their natural, unless they're way off. If I see somebody who's way off, especially if they're already an employee here, and we DiSC our people, by the way, every year at least, sometimes more, okay? If I'm DiSCing an employee and I see a big difference here, we have a problem, and I'm going to have a talk with them, okay? Because they're having to adapt way too much for this job, and they might be in the wrong seat. Yes?
Do you find there's much difference between the results year over year? Does it change?
It depends on if their job has changed, and it also depends. Like we had someone who went through a divorce, and he actually was a DI, and after we DiSCed him a year later, he was an IS. But his new girlfriend was a very high DI. So, and that his natural adapted. So, it doesn't happen often, but it does, and that's why we do that. Okay, so because if you're going to, one of the reasons that we do the DiSC profiling is not only to help you in your organizations hire better people, okay, but we also do it so for internal communication, but you guys can resell this, okay? If you do give it to your team, they're going to want you to read it, or they're going to want to know what it is. You can't just make your team take it, they get the results, and then you're like, okay, thank you. It's not going to work. Because people like to know about them, they're going to want to learn about the DiSC. So you have to have some kind of knowledge on how to read these DiSC. So I'm going to go through it real quickly. I'm sure that you guys are not going to absorb this and remember it tomorrow. So what I am going to tell you is if you guys have team members that take it after this and you need help reading it, just shoot me an email with their DiSC and I'll email you back a summary. Okay? All right, so if I'm going to read this DiSC, the first thing I'm going to do for Alex, if him and I are sitting down, is I'm going to talk about his high D characteristics, which are what? What is he like? He is dominant. He is assertive. Likes confrontation. Demanding. No more D words, guys. All right, so I'm going to say those things. And he's going to sit there and he's going to say, yep, I am. That's what I am. The next thing I'm going to do is talk about his high I characteristics. How he likes to be in front of people. He likes to talk. Okay, he likes to make, I'll tell you guys a story real quick, and this just happened last week. I'm a DI, a 1. My disc is just like his, except I think I'm a 1 on the S. So I never realized, I thought my eye was going down, but I realized just last week that it's not, and this is why. I'm on the phone with this guy, he's a partner, and he's trying to make me understand why he thinks he should get a credit. We're pretty open here. I mean, we are. But when we have rules that we've set, I say, no, look, you can't do it. Like, it's just not going to work. So I'm telling him, hey, it's a rule. I mean, it's always been our rule. We're not going to change it. And he's talking to me, and he's trying to talk me into it. He's using his HighC, right? And he's giving me all these facts and well, go back and look at this and look at that. I said, all right, well, let's just call him John. I said, John, I said, look, you can give me all the facts you want, but the bottom line is, well, I'm not going to do it. Well, I want to talk to such and such, I want to talk to such. So I go in. Now I'm in my mode, right? My I mode. Like, I want to influence him so he understands what I'm saying. So I'm going in my I mode, and I'm talking, and I'm telling him why, and I'm like, look, it's this, 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 and this. Look at this, look at that. I said, what you're saying is not making any sense. It was all about help desk. I said, we didn't even have help desk then. He wanted credit on help desk, because back in the day we used to give credits. We never gave credit on help desk. So I'm like, we never did that, so we're not going to do it. And he was not listening to me. And I'm trying, I'm using my skills or whatever, and it's not working. So we have to phone Nick, our office. He's like, man, why are you so upset about that? And I was like, because I didn't win. I mean, he still's not getting the credit, but he was still not seeing what I was seeing, and it really bothers me if I can't influence someone to my way of thinking. So I think my eye's probably still way up there. But that's how we are. High eyes, we want to talk, and we think by talking, we're going to get our point across, and we're going to influence them to believe what we want to believe, or we want them to believe. Okay, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I mean, some high eyes, you'll find they do, like, we'll talk about why you shouldn't put high eyes together. All right, so the next thing I'll talk about is his low S. So I'll talk about all those characteristics of a low S. All right? He likes to do more than one thing at the same time. So if you go in Alex's office right now, I bet you he has 20 different windows open on his computer, if not more. Probably more. Okay? He likes to do a lot of different things. It's hard for us to start and finish something. We do, in between that project, we've done 50 other things. Okay? When like with myself, when I take a bath, I have a book, I have my iPhone, I have all these things I'm doing at once. When he goes to the bathroom, he plays Angry Birds, he reads emails, he does all these things.
That's too bad of a visual.
Yeah, think about me when I get the text. Guess what I'm doing? And then we'll talk about the spreads. So the spreads are important, right? So we got a spread of, 98 here. So it's a huge spread. So we want to talk about that. We want to what we would say to this person is, obviously your sense of urgency is off the chart, and it is. And that is the bigger spread between the D and the S is what's going to relate to their sense of urgency. So if Alex tells us to do something, we know that he actually wanted it yesterday. And we know that he's probably going to ask us in 30 minutes if it's done. So you got to keep letting him know. Send him emails, send him texts or whatever. Let him know, hey, I'm working on it. I still got this, But we understand that about him, so that's what we do. And then we're going to talk about the relationship from the D and the C. And that's going to tell us that he's very decisive. Whenever he wants something, he makes a decision. Okay? And that's what you'll find about the high Ds. As long as you give him enough information, and his C is pretty low, so he doesn't need a lot of facts, okay? He doesn't. He's going to make a decision very quickly. The higher the C, the more facts and information that he needs before he's going to make that decision. And we'll kind of talk about conflicts in a minute, because if you're a D and a C, that's a conflict, because your D wants to make a decision right now, but your C is saying, hold on, let's get more information. Okay. Yeah, you're in trouble. Okay, now this is John Bear. So he's kind of the opposite, right? Now, he's our level 3 guy. He's been with us a long time. What is the high? So if I read this, I'm going to talk about the high C. So what am I going to say about John Bear? He likes process, procedures, okay? He likes to do things. He likes to start and stop things. He doesn't like change. He really doesn't. He's going to present to you guys, but I'm telling you, he's totally out of his element. Okay? He does a good job, but he's adapting. Luckily, he only has to do it once a month. But we're not going to send John Baird to a networking event, because what he's going to do is this. I mean, he is. He's not going to go up and meet people. And he's not going to be very dominating. He's not going to have that dominating personality. His sense of urgency. So if Alex tells John to do something, I mean, John's like, oh, yeah, dude, I'll get it done. And Alex is thinking he's going to have it done by the end of the day. And John's like, well, you didn't tell me that. You know, I didn't even start it yet. Okay, so let's talk about, this is where it gets really good. So first impressions. If you don't understand the DiSC, and let's say you're a salesperson, Justin,
Okay.
and I'm going to sell to you, and I come in, and you are an IS. Okay, so I come in, actually, no. So, Ralph. So I come in and I'm going to sell you managed services. This is our first impression, right? So you took the appointment because you had a really good telemarketer, and you're like, oh, God, I got to meet this chick, right? So I come in and I'm like, Ralph, how's it going, buddy? How you doing? What are you thinking? His face is red. Yeah, he doesn't. Do you really like me?
I don't know.
But I mean, really though, you're like, oh, God, she touched me. She's in my space.
It says you're supposed to stay at 3 feet.
Yeah. See, that's why I got close to you. Yeah, but it's uncomfortable, right? Now, if I came in, now let's just say, knowing the DiSC profile, because I'm looking at my surroundings, I'm going to make sure that, well, first of all, you're not going to know right away the first second that you meet Ralph that he's in CS. But gradually, so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to come in too strong, right? I'm going to come in, I'm going to say, hey, Ralph, nice to meet you. Okay? Step back. I'm going to look at how his office is. Because if you got a high eye, what you're going to find in their office is pictures of their kids. A whole bunch of pictures and stuff of their kids. Now, if you're a high DI, no. Not too much. Like you go in my office, I got one picture of my son. And that's it. Alex has some pictures or whatever. But your high eyes are going to have usually a lot of different pictures, things like that. So that's a sign. If you have a high eye, be careful with your warm-up too. Because you may do a 30-minute warm-up, or like me, a 2-hour warm-up. And then it doesn't leave a lot of time for presentation, right? So you have to be careful with that. But what I'm talking about with first impressions in the DiSC profiling is you have to go in and you have to learn based on their surroundings. I mean, if you go in a conference room, it's a little harder. When you go in your office, go in their office, see how they shake your hand, right? I mean, men, usually it's hard to tell because usually they have firm handshakes. But with women, see, I totally tell she's not a D. I mean, you could just tell because my handshake, I'm shaking your hand. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how people are. So you have to be able to go in, you have to be able to adapt because people like doing business with people they what? They like. Who do I like? People that are like me, right? So if you go in and you can adapt and you can be like that person, because I know Ralph, when I give him my proposal, it better have all the information in it. Because he's a HighC, so he's going to go through that, and he's going to ask me a lot of questions. Okay? I'm probably going to have to take my sales engineer with me. Okay? Make sense? You guys see why first impressions are important? Also, John and Alex, going back to their DiSC profile, let's say that John had to manage Alex. How do you think that would go?
Not pretty.
Drinking problem in the works.
Drinking problem? Yeah, so John would probably say, hey, Alex, did you fill out your timesheet in ConnectWise?
Like what?
And then he's going to say what?
Yeah. What are you, nuts?
He's like, you think I got time for that? I'm out here meeting people. I'm trying to get sales. You want me to spend my time filling out this timesheet? Right? So Alex managing John. What do you think some conflicts could be there? I mean, think about this in your organization. What are some issues with a high DI managing somebody who is in SC?
Getting things done in your time frame.
Okay. What about communication? So Alex is like, rah, 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 and John's like,
Stress.
yeah.
Stress.
So it's important, right? It's important to understand our people's DiSC profile so we can adapt when we're talking to them. Because again, that goes back to, it doesn't matter what you want to do. It's how they want to be addressed and how they want to be talked to. Because in the end, we're trying to get results, right? So we can fight all day long over this communication issue, or we can just adapt and be done with it. It's kind of an ego thing a little bit. All right, so conflicts. You mean conflicts. That means that I'm a high DI, you're a high CS. And if we don't know that about each other, then we probably aren't going to like each other. Because I'm going to send you emails, and it's going to be missing punctuation, and it's going to have words that aren't capitalized and misspellings, and you're going to be aggravated. Okay? My sense of urgency is going to be off the chart, and yours isn't, and you're going to wonder why I need everything done right now, and what's wrong with me? Me conflicts. That's the DC. Remember I told you? The D saying, I want to make a decision, and the C saying, wait a minute, we need more facts and data. Okay, so that's a conflict. There's another conflict with an IS. Yeah.
What do I do about my existence?
You just give up. Give up,
Oh,
Justin.
well.
You retake the disc. No, I'm kidding. And you lie.
I've done it twice.
No. All right, well, if you've done it twice, you're good then. You're just doomed. All right, so Mimi conflicts, they're fine as long as you know about them. You know, as long as you understand that your eye is saying, hey, your eye wants to go. Like high eyes, a way to tell a high eye, we talk with our hands. Okay, do you guys talk with your hands? Depending on how high your eye is. I mean, I can't do, I really, even on the phones, if you guys have ever been on the phone with me, I'm telling you, I'm either pacing in my office doing this, or I'm sitting at my desk doing this. I mean, I just can't stop it.
I think we need to put a webcam in your office so we can see what you're doing.
Yeah. And then the me job conflicts, that's saying, you know how we went back to the graphs, and I said if the graphs are too different, the natural and adaptive, that there's probably an issue. That means that someone's having to adapt too much to their job. Okay? And what that does is it burns energy, and then whatever's left, they put into the job. So you don't, if you do DiSC your people and they are off, you want to sit down and have a talk with them. And you could talk with me about it first, and I'll kind of ask you what exactly they're doing and things like that. What did they do before? And we'll talk about it, and then you can go address it with the person. But they're probably in the wrong seat. All right, 2 Ds working together. What do you think would happen? Butt heads? Or be the best of friends? Yeah, they do. They work together pretty well. There's a lot of arguing and probably throwing things and yelling. But at the end of the day, high Ds don't hold grudges. So we can go have drinks after work. Because I'm not gonna think about all that stuff we just thought about. I don't care. It's over. That's how high Ds are. We get over it quick. Okay, so but they do work well together and they get stuff done. 2 high Is. Talk over each other. I don't know about talking over each other. It depends on what their next letter is. But 2 high Is probably aren't going to get a lot done in an office. They're going to be talking. Yeah, I mean, they just are. So you got to be careful with that. They're going to get along really well, though. Just not going to get a lot done. Okay? S's, 2 S's. They'll actually get along the best, by the way. 2 S's. They will. They'll get along very well. The problem is that they'll probably miss deadlines because not a lot's going to get done because they take their time, okay, depending on what their next letter is. But 2 S's will work well together. What about 2 C's? 2 C's will work excellent together as long as they have the data or the facts from the same source. If they have different sources, they will butt heads because C's are very dominant also. Okay, just like your D's, C's are very dominant. D's and C's are task-driven. Your I's and your S's are people-driven. Okay? So C's want to get stuff done too. They just a lot of times need too much information to make that decision. Let's just say we had a Supreme Court of all high D's. What would happen? Hang 'em. What would happen? All D's on a Supreme Court.
Everyone would get the death penalty.
Landmark decisions, right? Okay. Supreme Court of all eyes. Be a lot of talking going on and nothing getting done. Yeah. What about S's? They would not be able to make a decision. S's have a really hard time making a decision, depending on what their next letter is. Like for example, you, Ralph, it'll take you a while to make a decision. Like, I don't know who signed up for CharTec, but I'm sure it was a long process if it was in your hands.
You don't remember talking to me until a year and a half ago?
Oh, okay. See? So it takes him a long time to make a decision because he needs to do his homework. He needs to get a lot of information. See, like for me, it would be really hard working for Ralph, being a DI. It would be really hard for me if I didn't understand his profile, right? As his employee, I would have to know that for me to take an idea to Ralph, I have to have all my ducks in a row, all the information laid out for him, and then be prepared that he's going to ask me 100 more questions. But if I didn't know that about him, I'm just going to say, man, I got this boss, and he, blah, blah, you know. It wouldn't work.
Who tends to be the passive-aggressive type, the I's? Or the S's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the I's, too. I mean, a lot of, like, our support staff are, you know, SIs or ICs. Because they're the ones that actually can really get the things done. You know, like Alex and I will say, hey, we need this done, that done, this done. We don't know how it gets done, but we just know we want it done.
Well, when you're dealing with a client directly, you know, you want to have someone who's not going to reflexively say you're an idiot. You know, you want to have someone who can absorb it to a certain extent.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
And your technicians, it's hard. You know, people say, well, what's a benchmark for a technician? It depends, right? Are they client-facing? They're in front of the client all the time? If that's the case, you want somebody who's a little bit personable. But then you also want somebody who's not going to, what Alex said, click yes when it should be no, or, you know. You also want someone that has a little bit of C in them, too, because they need to be able to follow procedures and processes. Okay? You cold? We have a blanket. All right, so the DiSC profile. These are all the things that the DiSC can help you with. Okay, guys? Our challenge to you. Top 5 clients. How amazing is it if you're going to go in and meet with one of your clients at a QBR, and you're going to say, look, I got this new thing I'm doing with my employees, and it's really helped me manage them better. It's helped me get more sales. It's helped me all these things. You tell them all these things, right? It's helped me do all these things. I was just wondering, you want to try it out? Here, I got my results. They're right here. Read them. Like, tell me what you think. If you want to try it out, let me know. Because now we're talking to this client not about technology, but about their business. That's a different conversation, right? That's a different relationship. Okay? Sometimes clients will say, no, I don't want to take it, I'm not interested, or yeah, I heard about that stuff, I'm not interested. And that's fine. But you will get some that do, and you guys can resell this to them. Because the retail price on the DiSC is like $98 or something like that, is the retail on this. If they do take it, use that as another reason to go meet with them. And sit down. I had a partner. He emailed me Monday. He said, look, my client took this test. He said, I don't want to look like an idiot. Can you help me? So I went through the results, and I gave him just a one-page Word document, and I highlighted the important things, and I said, just go through these things, and you'll be fine. I'm telling you, he'll be impressed. If you guys need me to do that for you, I will. How about, you guys ever gave this to your spouse?
Yes.
Yep.
How'd that go?
He's HighC.
Uh-huh.
I'm a HighIS. I'm not really sure how that's working out. I just dissed him a couple days ago.
Oh.
We're going to find out.
Well, but this is what it is going to do. It's going to make you realize what he is and why he does what he does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Just curious about, in terms of the benefits, applying the benefits to finding talent and team building and so forth. How do you have like an overview of what the model organization would look like? I mean, the sales guy has his kind of mix, and
Mhm.
Where can I find out more about that?
Well, on everybody,
Salesperson or that perfect, support person.
and Alex is going to talk about, and I think it's either today or tomorrow, on how to hire, fire, and pay that salesperson. Well, maybe not perfect, but close to it. He's going to go through that. Most of your salespeople, Donald,
Yes.
are going to be your DIs. And you may try to deviate from that. And you may say, you know what, I really like this guy. He's really personable. I mean, he's not a D, he's an IS, or I get a lot of ISs. If we see that, because Alex actually help you hire salespeople, guys. He'll talk about that. He will interview your potential salespeople. If he sees it, but he's going to ask you to do a DiSC first, because that's important. If it is an IS, he won't even interview him, because he'll say, you're going to make a mistake, and I'm not going to be part of it. I mean, he's failed. He's done it. That's why he can say that, because you need to have a high D, because they have to control the conversation. They cannot be scared to make that call and ask for the sale, okay? If you look around, Donald, on all of our people, we have their DiSC profile laminated. So you can walk by dispatch. You can walk by all the different departments and look at their DiSC. And actually, we're going to change that, because right now we have the wheel, which is really hard to kind of understand. We're going to change that and make it the actual graph, because we talk about the graph so you guys can understand that. Okay? And if you want to talk to me offline, we can do that. Okay. Okay, so you guys get the DiSC. We got a little discount. If you buy 5, you get 1 free. Or they're $49.95.